Mendo Indonesia, di mana beliau ini nanti akan menyampaikan mengenai Indonesia Renewable Energy Sustainable Toward a Cleaner Future. Good evening, Pak Peter. Thank you for joining our webinar session tonight. We are really pleased to have you to deliver this Indonesia Renewable Energy Sustainable Towards a Cleaner Future session. And hari ini sesinya karena beliau ini lebih lama tinggal di luar Indonesia, jadi beliau lebih kita akan sesi hari ini akan dalam bahasa Inggris. Nanti kalau teman-teman ada yang kesulitan menyampaikannya dalam bahasa Inggris, nanti bisa saya bantu, nanti saya terjemahkan. Saya break sebentar, sekitar 1 menit. Kebetulan di sini baru azan, saya minta waktu untuk break sebentar 1 menit. Oke. Mohon maaf, dari tadi saya sudah bicara sebenarnya, tapi ini masih unmute ternyata. Oke, Bapak Ibu, suara saya apa bisa didengar dengan jelas?
Sudah, Mbak, sudah.
Oke, tadi udah saya mulai tadi sebenarnya. Baik, selamat malam Bapak dan Ibu. Kita bertemu lagi di webinar Bangun Energi. Senang sekali bisa berdiskusi kembali dengan teman-teman sekalian. Hari ini kita kedatangan Pak Peter Loh. Beliau saat ini adalah Business Advisor to President Director PT Mendo Indonesia. Topik yang akan beliau sampaikan hari ini berjudul Indonesia Renewable Energy Sustainable Towards a Cleaner Future, atau lebih kurang pembahasan mengenai apa sih itu renewable energy, bagaimana renewable energy ini dapat bermanfaat bagi lingkungan dan masyarakat Indonesia, terus bagaimana implementasinya dan penyesuaiannya terhadap rencana pemerintah, dan selain renewable energy ini, apalagi prospek lain yang bermanfaat bagi pembangunan Indonesia. Pak Peter, thank you for joining us today. It's really, we are happy to have you to deliver this tonight session. And I just announced to participants your outline and the topics. And for the next 1 hour, you can share your slide or your informations. It may in Indonesia and or in English, and I will translate to other participants of they are have any problem with languages.
Thank you very much,
Yep.
Mr. Ibu Sari.
Sorry. Yep.
Thank you to Bangun Energy for giving me the pleasure to share whatever knowledge I have on renewable energy. And a good evening to everyone else who's attending this session, a sharing session. I would just like to say that I'm not going into very technical details about the renewable energy, but just to give a brief summary of the types of renewable energy and what we can or what Indonesia can benefit if the government is encouraging entrepreneurs and up and coming entrepreneurs like the young people of Indonesia to develop these businesses in Indonesia for the next coming, say, 10 years. Right. So I'm going to share a brief write-up what I have given to Bangun Energy. Just one moment. So I hope everyone can see what's on the screen right now. Can everyone see what I have shared on the screen?
Yes.
Yep, already.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. What is renewable energy? So basically, what's explained on the screen there, it's basically natural energy that's from the environment. We have the wind, the waves, the water, right, and heat. So basically, you see them every day. It's not something that is new or just appeared out of nowhere. So what we can do is use this natural energy, which is free of charge, and convert them into useful energy that we are requiring them on the day-to-day basis. So I'm going on to the next point. So how can we benefit from this renewable energy? So let's talk about electricity. Electricity right now in Indonesia is in highly demand, right? Because the population is increasing. There are businesses that are thriving and growing. So all these industries require electricity, right? Electricity to power machines, electricity to provide heat, electricity to provide air condition to the housing. So now, if we can develop this natural energy into electricity, the cost is much lower, right? The cost is increasing every day, every month, every year. So, but yeah, in some countries, especially the underdeveloped countries, right, the wages are still remaining at very low level. So, in order to survive, we need to see how to reduce the cost of the daily energy that we are requiring. One of them is converting one of these natural energy into something that we can use it and reduce our daily costs. So going to the next one. So how can we launch renewable energy in Indonesia? Right. What we need is a developer, someone who is keen to develop and one of these kind of projects, someone who's keen to make money out of it. But of course, the developer has to have a mind of his own that the main objective of this development is not just to make money, but also to help the community at the same time. So, but the developer alone is not enough to start a project. Now, let's talk about wind wind energy, the wind farms. I believe some of you have an idea what are wind farms. So that's a very high tower with blades, propeller blades, if you can call it. They are turning at a speed, and this speed is based on the wind energy. So this the turning of the blades create mechanical energy, which drives the turbine, and the turbine will convert the potential energy into kinetic energy and eventually into electricity. So now, in order to construct a wind farm, it's either onshore or offshore. Now, offshore, there are several. Sorry, someone asked me to start my video. Okay, right. I'm a little bit shy, so I want to avoid showing my face on the screen. But anyway, it's just a fair enough request. So I've switched on my video. Right, where I've stopped is this wind farm. It can be built offshore and onshore. So offshore, we have to get permits to construct structures on the sea, and that is usually from the government agency, who is actually SKK Migas, and SKK Migas will probably get the permit from the environment department, and that's the very first step. So second step is we have to look at the fishing community. Are they affected by this development? If they are, then the developer has to do something to compensate to these the fishermen. So there are several things, several issues to look into when we start a project of such nature. So one of them is community relations, and of course on the developer side, he has to conduct a pre-feasibility study of whether is it money making project. At the end of the day, he will not lose his investment. So it's a very tedious process where it will take about a minimum of 6 to 12 months, depending on the complexity. Some projects can even take about 2 years to perform a pre-feasibility study. There is one company that has just started a wind farm project in Vietnam. It took them about 3 years to do a pre-feasibility study before they can actually present the proposal to the Vietnamese government, who actually approved the construction of the project. Now, that's the very beginning of the project. And from this pre-FS, in short, study, it will tell the owner of the developer how much money is going to cost him to start up this project, how much people and how long it's going to take, and what are the requirements that he has to meet in order to start up this investment project. Now, before he can actually start up, he has to make sure that when he complete his wind farm, he must have what he call power purchase agreement with the grid, national grid that belongs to the government. Now, what is this power purchase agreement? Is an agreement whereby a contract is signed between the government, the grid, who is going to buy the electricity that is converted from the wind farm, and then resell it to the community. That's a power purchase agreement, and followed with a contract to be signed with regards to the supply of electricity that will probably, depending on Indonesia, right? In the Philippines, the contract can last as long as 59 years for any private public projects. In Indonesia, it's probably 30 years. So subsequently, there's always a condition whereby after the contract is completed, the developer has to hand over to the government, whereby the government will most likely operate it on its own and manage the electricity conversion. So what we call that is build to operate projects. Now, so usually a typical wind farm that can generate about 10 megawatt of electricity, that's going to cost in as large as probably about 600 to a billion US dollars. And the investors expect a return on investments of at least about 20% minimum. So it's going to be a very huge investment, and it's going to take a while for the investors to get back this the money. And usually investors are looking at a very short return on investment of about 5 years maximum. So the developer has to consider that he's going to take about 30% of his own investment, his own money to put into the project, and the remaining 70% from the bank. And usually it's going to be a big burden on him if he's going to take 70% loan from the bank. So he's going to distribute this 70% across to other kinds of organizations. Some of them are private investors, private investment institutions, or there are another group of organizations such as the Asian Development Banks, United Nations, USAID, IRENA, who are actually, how should I say, they are providing funds to support any organizations, any company who's going to develop renewable energy that is going to benefit the community. And some of them are actually providing the funds on a no loan basis. That means you get the money free of charge. You don't have to return them back, provided you can prove to them that this project will benefit the community. Right. So, but the documentation that has to be provided is going to be very detailed and elaborate. You need some experts to do write-ups on different sectors, and then all these write-ups have to be consolidated into one report, whereby it's going to be submitted to these organizations to review, and the review can take as long as probably 6 months to a year before they can actually agree to provide the funds to the developer to execute the projects. So now I'm going to the next one. Now, are we aligning with the Indonesian government's energy initiatives? I think some of you have already been reading the newspapers and magazines and the web, whereby Indonesia is looking at increasing the electrification of the country by 2030, and that is because the government is expecting a huge increase of the population and hopes to get more investors to come into the country and start new industries. So the demand for electricity will triple by the year 2030. So in this aspect, the government is actually encouraging developers, say such as PT Maindo, to a local company to actually kick off renewable energy projects and bring businesses, bring private investors into the country to promote the growth of the economy, and in doing that, creating more jobs for the local people. All right, so this is one of the remap is one of the roadmap to promote renewable energy. That's from IRENA. IRENA is an Italian organization, and they are part of the Italian government, not completely, but they are also supporting communities in developing projects, third world countries in developing projects, and in doing so, they are also providing opportunities from Italian companies to enter the project country and get involved in the projects jointly. so that both parties can actually benefit from the projects. Okay, so now looking at all these renewable energy projects, it wasn't so popular maybe about 10 years ago, but slowly the very first renewable energy that actually started was way back in 2004, and that was the solar energy. I first came into in touch with solar energy when I started to help a friend to set up a company, and I did some research on solar energy, and I found that it has a huge potential. The only setback for solar energy was that the cost of manufacturing the solar cells was very expensive, and then the contribution of the solar cell at that time was not worth the investments. How should I say? A small little piece of solar cell, say the size of a matchbox, right? Matchstick box that cost probably about 10,000 US dollars at that time, and it can only power up a bulb in your house. So nobody's going to spend so much money on that. But as the years go by, with the increase in the technology, the manufacturing of these solar cells have improved, and the same process reducing the cost of the manufacturing. And so therefore, the growth of the solar energy industry has tripled, and everybody has jumped into the opportunity and set up many solar farms in almost every country, even the Philippines. Looking at the infrastructure on their electrification network, I think they have quite a huge an area of solar farms in many parts of the isolated islands. So with this roadmap from the Indonesian government, I think we should all join hands and take a look to see how we can actually develop this and grow the industry. So that in the same process, we will create not only jobs, but we will improve the livelihood of the people. So what other types of projects besides renewable energy that can benefit Indonesia? I have on the screen, there are several. These are not renewable energy, but in a sense, they are using waste that and convert them into something useful. So I should say it's useful energy, it's not renewable energy. So one of them is waste to energy. Waste to energy technology has evolved very slowly, not very much in the last few years since it started with about 8 to 10 years ago. And about, I should say 99% of the waste to energy treatment facilities, they are all fixed type of plants. So the investment cost is very huge. But there are also one or two manufacturers that have actually come up with modular type of waste to energy module facility, which I'm going to show you a video of one of them that it's probably will help reduce the cost of developers if they are interested, and that can actually clean up the country by converting all the waste into useful energy, like this converting the gas into electricity and using the byproduct of the treatment into, say, making cobbler rocks for the walkways and some other kind of recycled products. The second one is the wastewater treatment. So if you have, I believe you are aware that you have all kinds of wastewater coming out from your homes, into the drains outside your homes. And where do all these wastewater go to? They go somewhere. They go to the rivers, mainly to the rivers. Of course, they go to the huge canals before they travel into the rivers, and then the rivers will travel to the sea. Now, um, we are actually polluting the sea and the rivers, and if the drains are choked, then you get um, contamination of water, you get mosquitoes infestation. So somehow or other we need to treat this water into something that is clean. Now this wastewater treatment can treat both industrial and dirty water, and making them into industrial and potable water. So, and of course, once you treat all this kind of this water, what remains is the sludge. That sludge can also be converted into biodiesel. So nothing is wasted in a way to say. Then of course, electric vehicles. So I think some of you have seen electric vehicles on the roads. Not many in Indonesia, but in Singapore it has already started. Uh, we have charging stations in Singapore. So the government is encouraging the use of electric vehicles. But so how are they encouraging is they are giving incentives to any buyers who will buy electric vehicles, and the road tax will be reduced. So that's an incentive for someone to invest in an electric vehicle. So that's one of the incentive that the government should look at in encouraging people to go into clean products, clean energy products. Then of course we have aquaculture. Aquaculture in Indonesia, it's just about to start. There's one company that has already started, but it's not doing well. It's a good industry that the entrepreneurs in Indonesia should look into, because Indonesia is a country full of islands, and the islands are all surrounded by sea, by water. So developing some of these coastal areas into a fish farm and developing it as food or as hobby will benefit the community. Because once you develop a fish farm, from the fish farm it becomes a business, and from a business you can process the fishes. You need, in order to process the fishes, you need a factory to process the fishes, and after you process the fishes, you need a warehouse to pack excuse me, to pack the fishes, and after that you need trucks, you need ships to transport the fishes to your customers. So it's a whole string of new businesses that will appear from the development of the aquaculture in Indonesia. The next one is the LNG, liquefied natural gas. There are several companies in Indonesia already that has actually LNG storage terminals, which is another clean energy that is good for the environment. Singapore government is really relying a lot of this LNG, and is trying to convert, I should say, replace the use of fuel by this LNG into the homes. Now, with that, the Singapore government has actually created more opportunities for suppliers from LNG producing countries. Some of these companies have actually set up bases in Singapore. Right now, there are 3 suppliers, if I'm not wrong. And of course, there are more opportunities for any other companies that who are willing to set up base in Singapore. But then, in order to set up base to supply LNG, the developer has to find the source of LNG. Now, Indonesia is rich with LNG. So right now, I think Pertamina has several gas fields that are producing LNG. There are several other gas fields as well, with huge potential that has not been initiated for development. I believe the government is going to look closely at this and launch more development projects to develop more gas fields by Pertamina. And the other will be the decommissioning of expired offshore platforms. Indonesia is one of the, I think, number 5 or number 6 countries that has one of the high number of expired offshore platforms. So now these offshore platforms, how to remove them safely have been studied for several years. There are also some studies that involve foreign companies, and they produce proposals how to make use of these expired platforms. Some of them have even suggested to leave the expired platforms untouched and converting them into some useful farms to cultivate fishes or whatever. Now, Mindo is looking at decommissioning of expired offshore platforms as one of the new business. That's why the company has invested in offshore vessels. We are looking at constructing vessels that can actually remove expired offshore platforms safely. These platforms will then be brought to a land, a yard that we can actually remove, destructure these platforms into pieces and recycle the materials. The steel, of course, that cannot be treated in the waste to energy facility, but they can be sold off to a steel mill that requires these materials to make them into new steel that will be used for constructing buildings and offshore platforms. And the other kinds of recyclable products, we can actually sell it back to the factories, like glass and ceramic. In Bahasa Indonesia is ceramic, in English is ceramic, and those that can be treated, that's easily burn off, and the gas will be converted into electricity. So nothing is actually wasted, right? I hope so far if anyone has any questions, you can actually stop me and ask me. Right, from a business perspective, now, if you look at this string of businesses that will appear from all these projects, it's a huge list of industries. Now, what can they do to the local economy? Well, it will probably create jobs for about a few million people, right? Say the first one, CNC machine, right? Mindo has a yard in Bintan, in Handil, and 2 other workshops in Jakarta and other locations. We have CNC machines, and they are actually producing, completing the work much faster than the manual labor. But still, they require labor to operate the machines. And in order for the operators to operate the machine, they have to understand and read and operate the computers and able to read drawings. Now, just one of this item, this industry, CNC, the institutions, the educational institutions can actually spring up and start courses on these CNC machines. And then you have a new subject, it can be a diploma course or a technical course or a university degree course that can actually train people to operate and to program CNC machines, and even to the extent of developing new CNC machines. Now, panel manufacturing for vehicles. What is that? That is, if most of you have driving cars on the roads. So those the doors and the bonnets, the body of the cars, they're all made of panels, steel panels, and these are all manufactured by the companies or factories that are having very low cost, and these manufacturers will provide the panels, example the cars for companies like Toyotas or even Mitsubishi. So why I put this up is because one of the industry that will start to grow tremendously will be the electric operated vehicles. Now you can see that Tesla, the biggest car manufacturer, has actually built a few $billion factory in China that can produce about a few thousand cars a year. That's a very huge target. And so if Indonesia is encouraging this electric vehicle, so what we need is to tie up with a technology provider. The technology provider will be from people who have this technology, and they are usually from the US, from Europe, and from China. But of course, the manufacturing of the low-cost items like the panels, the vehicle panels, can be done in Indonesia. So what we need to do is set up a factory to manufacture panels. So that will create jobs for a few thousands. And these panels can actually be located in every province, in every cities in Indonesia. So each factory will probably create jobs for about 3,000. So we're looking at, say, maybe more than 20 provinces. We have about 60,000 people already employed. Now, from this...
Sorry, Pak Vito.
Sorry, yes?
Yeah, sorry. I cut first your slide. I want to break it with one question.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. We have question from Pak Piki. Previously, you mentioned there's 23% energy mix program that from renewable energy that can be achieved. So, ya, Pak Piki, dengar suara saya, Pak Piki? Pak Piki? Okay, I will mention the question from Pak Piki. You have mentioned about 23% energy mix program from renewable energy that can be achieved. So in current situations, because of the pandemic and the economic growth, how we can achieve this target? Okay,
it's going to be very tough because you're looking at 2023. There's only another 3 years, and so far investors are very shy during the COVID period. Not many people are actually looking at spending money during this time, but it all depends on the economics of scale of the discovery of the vaccine. Now, nobody can tell how effective it's going to turn around the COVID. So, of course, the very first person or company that's going to produce a vaccine will be going to be the richest company or person in the world, right? There are many companies that are developing this vaccine, and the governments are already placing orders. So if the vaccines are produced and people are being cured easily from the COVID, investors will start to release the funds, right? So yeah, it will be on a spiral with kind of growth. So in order to prepare for that, we need to start now. But even so, another 3 years to meet that target, I should say, is impossible, right? One project is going to take probably about 3 years minimum. So if we're looking at this electrification target, we'll probably need at least about five big wind farms in Indonesia, and that will require wind developers to set up shop here. Now, we don't see much of wind developers here, international foreign investors, but we do have local wind developers in Indonesia, but on a very small scale. Now, the local developers are not that very cash rich, and for them to start a very huge project here to meet this target, they require lots of funds from the banks, the local banks. Now, based on my experience working doing developing projects in the Philippines and in other countries, local banks are a little bit shy on lending money to people for such projects, right? And if they are willing to lend the funds, they require tons of documents to support the loan. But unlike foreign banks, European international banks, they are more than willing to support wind farm projects. So now there are several of these European companies that are actually looking at investing in Indonesia, for example, in Southeast Asia, right? But then one is they need to tie up with a local company and someone who has very good contacts with the local government, someone who has good contacts with the banks who are willing to loan them money. So, and these foreign investors are willing to support this development with more funds. That's where the local companies will benefit from it. But to do it on their own, on a major scale, that's I should say is almost impossible because of the financial support that they are going to get from the government side. It will not be helpful in any way because the government is not going to provide such huge funds to any local developers as well. So I should say that if they bring it up to another 10 years, I believe it's going to be somewhat more practical to achieve, provided the government also has to do something to attract these investors, foreign investors to come in to set up shops here, to support to work with the local companies to develop such projects on a good speed. So in order to meet this 2030 target, otherwise it's not going to happen at all. Yep.
Okay. Only one question from for now.
Okay.
Well, we go ahead with next.
Yeah. Okay, so now with this introduction of electric vehicles into the country, there's a need for batteries charging stations, and then you will have the manufacturing of rechargeable batteries, which is going to be used on electric vehicles. So that's already 3 to 4 industries that will spring up from the introduction of electric vehicles. CNC also, in a way, will be supporting the electric vehicles on certain parts manufacturing. So I believe in another 5 years, electric vehicles will be quite rampant in the world, and there will be a rush for factories to start producing rechargeable batteries or even producing battery charging stations. Now, to enter into the electric vehicle industry is going to be very tough because you'll be fighting with, competing with big players like Toyota and all these people, Tesla. So I think local entrepreneurs who want to go into electric vehicles will probably look at panel manufacturing, rechargeable batteries manufacturing, parts manufacturing for the electric vehicles. Yep. So I think that's some of those industries that will be viable for the local industries, local players to enter. And of course, there are several others that a string of businesses that will appear from all these other renewable and non-renewable energy projects. So I'm going to cite one particular item, that is item P, that's the electric ferries. Now, I was promoting electric vehicles, basically electric waste trucks, because that time I was promoting waste to energy technology in the Philippines. So I kind of introduced electric waste trucks to support this the waste to energy facility, and that's also with the promotion of the electric ferries. Why they are all electric? That's because batteries are kind of clean batteries, right? The vehicles do not emit smoke that will pollute the environment, and the cost is much lower in terms of maintenance. But of course, the first time cost, it's more expensive, but then on the long run, it's cheaper, and the savings will be more, and the income will be higher. So Philippines have already started electric ferries that ply between Santa Fe Island and the island of Cebu, the port of Cebu. Santa Fe Island was the first location in the Philippines that I actually promoted this electric ferries. So, but then of course, there are several, too many complicated government processes to introduce these electric ferries. So I've kind of abandoned it, but I believe in Indonesia it's much easier to introduce such a technology, which I believe some entrepreneurs can actually look into into a good way of introducing such technology or industry into the country. For example, you have many ferries that ply from island to island. Now the boats ferries are using diesel to power their engines. Now the engines produce black smoke that's polluting the environment. So imagine if you can actually use the electric ferries that carry passengers and vehicles from port to port. And from port to port, it will not take more than, say, 3 hours, but we are not looking at a long distance. You're just talking about a short distance, a port to port as in within the same line. So at each port, the jetty can be installed with a rechargeable station, whereby when the ferry arrives at the port and berth at the jetty, the batteries will be automatically charged, and while the passengers and the vehicles are being offloaded. Once the offloading is done, the ferries are ready to are fully charged to bring another load of passengers and vehicles to the next spot. So how much is going to cost is the energy, well, you know how much electricity you're paying at home. You just multiply by the how many thousand rupiah per kilowatt hour. So one trip of from port to port will only take about 2 hours of about say about 10 to 15 kilometers. So that's only about and the recharging time is only about 6 hours. So each hour is you just multiply by a few thousand rupiah per kilowatt hour. That's the cost that's going to cost you for the fuel instead of paying diesel, right? So, but with this introduction, it's going to create many jobs to the local community, right? And from the waste to energy, we have that recycling, which many countries have already started to do so. Indonesia has some recycling activities, but it's on a very small scale. But I believe it will slowly start to grow as more publicity is being put into the country by the government, and like associations like Bangun Energy. Of course, with these industries that will come up, we will have waste collection. Waste collection, right now you see all sorts of waste trucks. They are not, I should not say they are proper waste trucks. They are just 14 feet, 12 feet footer trucks, open trucks that the manual laborers are just dumping it onto the truck and then transporting it to the landfill. If you're talking about a proper waste truck, is fully enclosed, and they have those how should I say, a machine that can actually compress the waste into bundles, and these bundles will be loaded into the waste treatment facility, and they can be easily treated, and the gas can be produced into electricity. Plastics, you see all sorts of plastics everywhere in the rubbish bin, and if it's not being recycled, that will also pollute the environment. Plastics can be also recycled, and if you can sort out this waste, the plastics from the waste, and then you can treat it, it will become into granules. Granules are being used for the manufacturing of new plastics. So that is also another useful form of products for recycling. And with all these industries that will spring up, the private and public educational institutions, the schools, the universities, they can actually start to have to create new subjects and offer opportunities to students who are keen to go into such technologies, to study them and to actually support the industries that will spring up. Because if we do not have the provide the knowledge to the people, we have the technology, then there is no continuity in doing so. So what's going to happen is that the company will have to look out of Indonesia and start hiring more and more foreigners because there is no availability of the local Indonesians who have such knowledge to manage this technology. So it has to go hand in hand when we start a new technology in the country, and the schools have to support it by providing that as a subject of study to educate people to support that industry. So the government has a lot to play in this developing, introducing new technologies into the country. The last, of course, with these many new industries that come up, we'll be attracting more and more foreign private banks, not the chartered banks and OCBC, but more of a family institutions, wealth institutions, bank funder, right? Whereby they will set up and they will this money actually belongs to wealthy families who have lots of money because they own many companies in the world which are making money, and they are willing to invest in a country on companies that are going to produce income to grow their funds. So with more of such companies that come in, and then we are looking at more improving the financial state of the country, and then we will have more people being educated to work in these banks. Right. So point 7, who will be affected by this renewable energy development? As you well know, I have explained renewable energy or using clean energy. So right now we have in Indonesia, we have many coal field fired plants. This will be some of the industries that will be affected by the renewable energy development. Well, the government is going to be tough on them if more and more renewable energy projects are being introduced into the countries, because these projects will be attracting more funders, more banks, more investments, and then the coal of field-fired plants operators will be left with no incentives at all from the government, and they will have to pay higher taxes. And that is one way the government is going to force these companies to shut down. But are they able to survive with this introduction of renewable energy? Yes. At point 8, they can redesign their process equipment. But of course, it is a huge capital investment. The government should help in a way by providing funds to these companies to redesign their process equipment and use this renewable energy and still continue to operate the plant to produce whatever they are producing. So instead of just imposing sanctions on them, but on the other hand, not helping them at all. Now, point 9. Is going solo sufficient for Indonesian companies, or joint venturing is necessary? As I have just mentioned earlier, local banks are very conservative. They are not willing to loan huge amount of money to entrepreneurs or developers. So what these companies have to do is go out of Indonesia to search for these funds. It's not going to be easy. Because one is they do not have contacts with many of these funders, and the funders of this for these projects, they're all based in Europe, US, Japan, and even Indonesia, in Singapore. The requirements for documents are very stringent, and most local companies are not able to produce such documents to justify the funds. So unless they change the way they operate the company and to make it more transparent, then with this kind of documentation, it should not be a problem. So the other one is, of course, to seek the government's help in linking up with these private investors, using the government as a guarantor, who is going to provide guarantee to the investors to pay the investors if the project does not go well at all. Now, it's going to be very tough as well for the Indonesian government to do that. It's not very common for the Indonesian government to provide guarantee or act as guarantor to local companies. That's why you only see very few local companies that are actually venturing into these huge projects, and these companies are very small in numbers in Indonesia, and they are the only ones that will survive in the next years to come. And the smaller ones are dying off because without support from the government, without any incentives, without any connections, they will not be able to survive. So the big ones will continue to grow bigger. The small ones will die off. That's the situation. So the government needs to encourage, to support the banks to open up and support the local industry to venture. Well, how they can do that? They have to look at how they can actually help the local company to build up their capability in terms of resource and knowledge, and in any assistance in permit application, and of course the other one is to limit the I should say limit. I cannot say eliminate. Limit the level of corruption, right? And because corruption will have a major impact on the small local companies, because a huge sum of money will be lost even before they actually start the projects. So they cannot afford to do that. And of course, The other way is to partner with some foreign manufacturer, designer, who can actually bring in the technology and the knowledge, in a way, the funds as well. But then the only useful advantage to the foreign investor by partnering with a local partner here is that the local connection. Now, if that's just the only usefulness that the foreign investors see, it eventually this partnership will not last long. So the local company will have to do more than just providing local connections. They have to be able to support the partnership with a bigger share of the funding. The local partner has to have good connections with the Indonesian government in a way to expedite permit applications for the projects, so that they can provide more advantages to the partnership. Otherwise, it's only a one-sided game, and eventually the partnership will not last. Now, so in order to do so, like what Singapore started to introduce technical how should I say cooperation with countries like Japan and Germany, when to attract these companies from these two countries to set up companies in Singapore. So before they do that, the Singapore government signed agreements with the governments from these two countries to have a joint venture to set up a technical institution where they will provide the trainers, they provide the knowledge to train students who are keen to go into these subjects. And then after the second and third year, some of these companies from the two countries started setting up shops in Singapore. And with that set up, the first batch of students from these institutions started working in these factories, and that's how the industry started to grow. Now for Singapore to actually go into these factories, it's not viable anymore because of the high cost of labor. But in Indonesia, the cost of labor is still very low. So it is one good way of building up your foundation in terms of building up the knowledge of people, and then so that you are able to tell the countries of the other world, in the world, that you have the people, the knowledge people who are available to support any new industries that are intending to set up shops in Indonesia. So that will be useful for the economy. Economy will grow. People get jobs, rather than relying on some industries that are actually on the ups and the downs, like the fabrication yards for the offshore industries. You see the ups and downs of the oil market. You see the ups and downs of the fabrication yards. You see the yards were busy for 1 to 2 years, and then it died off. The yard was shut down for another 2 years, and then it started to grow again. Now, I wouldn't recommend that the government concentrate on these yards alone, but rather also focus and help the other industries, so that during the ups and downs, the country is not affected by these setbacks, and still may continue to grow and survive the economic downturn. So it's the same thing that PT Mahindo is looking at. PT Mahindo is an EPC contractor for the plant constructions. So with the development of the new yard, fabrication yard in Bintan, we are not only fabricating structures projects for EPC plants, but we are also fabricating structures for the offshore industries. And why we are looking at the other industries, because we know that there are always ups and downs in this offshore oil and gas markets. So if we go into other areas like the renewable energy, during the downs of the oil market, we will still be thriving on the renewable market. So that's the reason why we are looking at developing these such businesses, in the hope that we also can create jobs for the local Indonesians. But like what I have said, there's always a huge potential that we will have to partner with technology providers from other countries who are also rich in funds. In doing so, we will be bringing in foreign talents, which is a necessity to work together with the local Indonesians to transfer the knowledge. But like what I say, just doing that is not enough. Schools have to start subjects on these technologies so that more and more students can take up and continue this knowledge technology. So the last point I need to say is, in order to compete internationally, the productivity level of the employee has to increase, which is going to be very tough. Looking at the current, how should I say, the current situation of the workforce. I should say, every company is hiring local Indonesians based on contracts. Even the foreigners are on contract basis. So the contracts are very few people are permanent basis. For some reasons that I think, if you study the labor law, it's there are disadvantages and there are advantages to the company, and vice versa. And this is one of the points that has to be improved in order to attract more investors coming into the company, into the country. We need to, in order to increase the knowledge of and experience of the employee, the local employee. When a local employee joins the company, you're looking at just for the next first 2 years, it's just getting some knowledge and starting to get a feel of the job. But in order to grow the experience of the staff to be able to work independently, he has to work at least 4 years in a company, right? In order to really understand the basic processes of the operational processes, functions of the company, so that if he joins another company, he can bring along the knowledge. Now, if he works on a contract basis, 3 months, 6 months, right? So that is, I can't even say that he actually understands the company operational process, even at a level of 50%. So how can he be considered as experienced? This is a problem. There is no continuity in the knowledge of employees, and it's affecting local companies terribly. We need to hire more people to do just for the same job compared to other countries. We need to hire foremen, but also supervisors, so that each of them will monitor each other's work. But then when employees start to come to an end of their contract, they will start to slow down. And when they start to slow down, the productivity level will slow down as well. That's what's happening right now, or has been happening for many years in Indonesia. Unless this will change, it's going to be very tough for Indonesia to compete with like say the workers from China, where their productivity level is so high. It's really very hard, even tough for Singapore companies to compete with. So I think I have more or less given a very thorough explanation of this renewable energy.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Peter. I thought we will see some data or graphical information, ya, Pak. because I used to work as business analyst, and we are familiar with data and graphical charts. Yeah, we already have some questions here, around 5.
Okay.
First, Pak Gokma Sinaga. Pak Gokma, tolong disebutkan dari asal instansinya juga, Pak. Silakan Pak Gokma, bisa di-unmute Pak mic-nya.
Dari kita Mbak Sari unmute-nya.
Kenapa? Oh iya, minta tolong Mas Dian.
Sebentar ya.
Okay.
Oh, sudah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peter Lo, for your presentations. Let me introduce myself. I am Gokma Sinaga. I'm an Indonesian. I'm currently taking a master degree on technical physics in Russia. And I'm really interested about the topic that you've explained to us, especially the point number 6 on your Word section, Microsoft Word section. And there you've mentioned that there are, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 23 startup business that we could have in future, and that's a great opportunity for us. But I have two questions exactly from my perspective. My first question is, do you have any indicator in which time we can start this business, this type of business? Because like my former experience, previous experience, I mean that I wanted to start a business in plastic recycling in Russia, and then we made the business plan in very detailed way, and then we gave also example from developed country like in from Netherlands, from Germany, that plastic recycling is a good opportunity to do, and will give this country some of benefits from the plastic waste recycling. But the fact this type of business is not really interested for people here, because they have, as you know, that Russia have a very big land, and they prefer to send their plastic waste to landfill. And they mentioned that this is not a good business in Russia. So could you please indicate for us, is there any indicator that we could understand well in what area or in what region we could start what type of business? And the second is, could you please tell us also maybe one best practices that you ever experienced on how to see a possibility in one region, like in one province, or in maybe in another country? That's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Peter.
Very good questions. Okay, to answer your first question, I believe the best place to start with regards to recycling business is Indonesia. That's your home country, right? If you look at, I believe you have already done your research. Indonesia is one of the country that produces the most waste in the world, right, per day. Yeah, just talking about Jakarta alone, right? How many millions of Indonesians living in Jakarta, right? You take the population of Jakarta, you multiply by a factor of 0.35. You get the average waste produced per day in kg. You divide it by 1,000, you get it in tons. Now, so when you have that that figure, say 1,000 tons of waste produced per day in Jakarta. So in order to treat the waste, you need a machine of the capacity of 1,000 tons a day, right? So now there are many landfills in Indonesia which are piling up, and one day these landfills will become full, and then the government is going to look for more islands to build new landfills. Now that is not going to be very encouraging because the landfills are actually destroying the land, the fertility of the land, right? So, but there are chemicals that are produced that will make good the landfill land again. But in order to do that, we have to clear the waste. Now, your recycling of plastics, I do not know what kind of byproduct you are producing. I believe you are you are doing sorting, you are treating the plastics into granule forms, right? Into like a pellets form. Now, these pellets are in huge demand in Europe. So if you want, you can actually do that in Indonesia, right? Because the cost is so much lower than starting up a plant in Netherlands or in UK or even in Russia. And you can actually treat these plastics by collecting the plastics from companies that are throwing them away free of charge at the rubbish bins, right? You'll be doing a favor if you collect this plastics from the rubbish bins into your factory, because the government is paying, I should say the companies are paying the government to collect this waste, these plastics. Now, if you can collect for free from the companies, they will thank you very much, right? They don't have to pay anything to the government, but of course the government will start to hate you, right? But always that's okay because the government can't do anything to you if you are willing to collect for free from these factories, right? Because you are going to recycle this plastics, which is will be good for the country. Now, when you recycle these plastics, you will produce them in a final form of pellets, and these pellets are in highly demand in Europe. You can actually export them to these countries for a good price. Yeah. So when you want to start a business, the most important thing to look at is the cost. Yeah. And second, answering your second question, there are several industries that you can go into, provided you have knowledge. If you do not have knowledge to go into any of these industries, it's going to be a very big risk for you. Yeah. I hope I answered both your questions.
Oke, kita pindah dulu ke pertanyaan selanjutnya dari Pak Heri Pasca. Pak Heri, udah bisa di-unmute, Pak?
Okay.
Okay, the second question from Pak Heri Pasca.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Law. This is a good presentation from you. I am Heri Pasca. Currently, I work in Chevron in Riau, Duri, in Indonesia. I was interested also in Bullet 6 in your word presentation. Actually, I have two questions. The first one is about the waste power plant. As you know that in Indonesia is so many waste in the province in Jakarta also. So I hear that this in Europe or US there is any technology like plasmatron, the thermal technology, which is 2,800 degrees Celsius. So every waste like plastic and everything will be changed to become a synthetic gas, and the synthetic gas will be heating the power plant turbine, and turbine will be generate electricity. This is the first one. And the second one, as you know that in Indonesia, many university, I'm interested like the CNC machining. It's every university have a CNC machining, machining. So to attract every single student in Indonesia, I believe that they have also entrepreneurial spirit, and what's of one of them. So do you have like the marketplace website in like an order system? If that some company like maybe perhaps Tesla or something else need to build some part of manufacturing, sometimes there is a new startup business can develop by Indonesian university, student university to have with a spare part, and also for the develop like the battery for electric vehicle, and also so I believe Mr. Peter Love have a good channel and network in everywhere. Okay, maybe that's two of my question. Thank you, Mr. Peter Love.
Most welcome. Okay, answering your first question, there are several manufacturers, designers of waste to energy technology. Most of them are using producing the syngas type of technology, but the disadvantage of this kind of technology is that they require the waste to meet a certain calorific value. So when I say calorific value, so it is looking at whether the waste is in the wet form or in the dry form. So if it's too wet, they cannot convert it. If it's too dry, they cannot convert it. So they have to depend on the right type of calorific value. So because of this, they have to sort out the waste. In a way, sorting is good. You're creating jobs for people, but then of course the process is slow because you have to sort out. If you are sorting out manually, it's going to take a long time before you can actually treat the waste. But the waste are being collected on a daily basis, so you will going to create a congestion, or what you call macet. So the macet will be at the sorting point before you can actually treat the waste. Okay. But there is the technology that I have promoted when I was in the Philippines. This technology is using plasma heat.
Yes, plasma heat.
Yeah, but the highest temperature it will go is, I think, is about 1,000 degrees Celsius. Yeah. It will not go higher than that. Why? The reason is because when the temperature goes above 1,000 degrees, metals start to melt. Now, when metals start to melt, they are producing very poisonous fumes, and that is one of the factor that we should avoid in a waste to energy facility, because the facility will not be designed to accommodate or to absorb the poisonous fumes to a large extent, only to a small extent. So that's why the temperature is set at maybe between 800 to 1,000 degrees Celsius, such that the metals will not produce much of us poisonous fumes, and then it will be left as a byproduct after the treatment in its original form, and it can be sold off to the steel mill, who will require these steel products and burn them or melt them into a raw stage, liquid stage, whereby they can remanufacture new steel products. And that steel mill has designed some processes in their plant to anticipate such poisonous fumes in large amounts, and they can actually filter them, absorb them in certain agents, so that the poisonous fumes are not released to the environment. I can share with you You leave your email address with Bangun Energy. I can share with you the video of this waste to energy technology that uses the thermal heat. They do not burn the waste, but they use the heat to decompose the waste to produce the gas and then converting it into electricity. Yeah. Then the second point, talking about the CNC machining. Okay. Introducing subjects on to teach students on new technology is good, but it's got to work hand in hand with the government. The government has to open up a door, the door to potential industries, new industries that are willing to come in or are not willing to, but can be attracted or convinced by the Indonesian government to come in within a period of time. So say plan target for them to come in, say in 2 years time. So government should work with universities to start this educational programs, say CNC machining, 2 years before the new companies start to set up base in the country. And by the time they graduate from these schools, they are ready to join the industries. So now, if you are looking at starting something new, whereby there are no markets in Indonesia, you are creating a very huge risk for yourself now, and for you alone to actually encourage these investors to come into the country and set up base. You are creating a risk for the investors as well, because unless the investors has some ongoing business in their home country, and they are producing this in large amounts for several years already, and for them to set up base in Indonesia is good for them in a way whereby they will reduce the cost of production, and in doing so will increase their profit. Yes, that is one way for them to set up base in Indonesia. But for you to align the timing of them to setting up base in Indonesia, and for you to produce a group of knowledge employees for them to use, it's going to be very tough unless you are very good strategist and you plan it so perfectly that you time these two objectives together, and they are very synchronized very well. I've been contacting with companies from the tidal wave technology provider, as well as the electric truck designer. They are willing to set up base in Singapore at the time, right? Because I was based in Singapore. But one of the factories that I have proposed to them as one of the manufacturing plants was in Indonesia, right? To manufacture the panels for the electric trucks, the hydraulic systems as well in Indonesia because of the low cost. But the main component, which is very expensive and high technology, whereby there's not enough knowledge people in Indonesia, so it has to be manufactured in Singapore. So, and the machining parts will be machined in will be produced in Vietnam, because Vietnam has a very high pool of machinists as compared to Indonesia. And when I say machinist, it's on a high level, not the usual lathe machine, but it's more on a CNC machine. Singapore has as well, but too expensive to maintain. So, but it didn't continue because of circumstances. But they're always open for discussions. But we are not going to this right now until we start off with a pilot project for the waste to energy facility in Indonesia. We start out with a small capacity, and when it's working, we are going to expand the capacity and start to treat waste from the government collectors. We are going to introduce the electric waste trucks to the government because they are the ones who are collecting the waste. That will help the government to reduce the cost of waste collection. And end of the day, converting the gas into electricity at a lower cost, that will also help Pertamina in a way, and the government, and finally the community to pay a lower cost electricity. And then, of course, with the introduction of the waste to energy facility, introduction of the electric waste trucks, we are going to create jobs for the local community as well. We're going to probably look at these electric charging stations. We're looking at the electric vehicle workshops. We'll be looking at the CNC machine. We'll be looking at the hydraulic parts manufacturing, as well as the pneumatic parts, the electrical accessories. Many industries will grow. Will start from this starting of the waste to energy facility. So of course, we'll be working with the government when we do so. So we want to actually how should I say, synchronize with the other areas like universities to start the subjects to teach students on these items before we actually launch full scale into this kind of projects. Otherwise, we'll be stuck with no available employees in Indonesia, and we have to look elsewhere out of Indonesia to hire. Yep.
Yes, I'm interesting of that, and I believe if you develop some kind like a web-based marketplace and put it into the order system, so I believe many of machinists, good machinists in Indonesia, like Polytechnic Mechanic Swiss, and I believe that some of the good university in Indonesia, like Polytechnic Mechanic Swiss and Polytechnic Negeri Malang, and also they have a good machinist also. So I believe the skills is best, I think, for to develop the manufacturing like that. Okay, thank you very much, Mr.
You're most welcome.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Before we carry on next questions, I'd like to respond from your explanation previously, Pak. Right now, I'm working with collaboration research in Asian countries, and refer to my study. In my humble opinion, Pak, Indonesian labor, I agree, is not high, and in my opinion, it is one of attractiveness from Indonesia for other countries to invest in Indonesia compared to any Asian countries. Okay, we move on to the next question from Pak Ilham. Pak Ilham, dengar suara saya, Pak?
Ya, dengar. Suara
Iya,
saya bisa
silakan,
didengar.
Pak.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Peter Loh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ilham, and currently I work in the biggest coal-fired power plant right now to equal 1,000 megawatt. And I have a question right now, like this. Wait. In point F about power generation manufacturing, and right now I have a team, and my team still struggling with that things, but we have a problem with financial, like a funding and investor. Can you suggest us as a teenager for achieve goal build that a manufacture from zero to support renewable energy? In this case, my hometown is near about some company in Indonesia built a power plant, geothermal power plant right now, and I have so much link and people in that power plant, and there's so many business inquiries uh, are received for me, but I don't have any funding and investor for make sure that thing is real. Thank you, Mr. Peterlo.
Thank you. I understand your situation. That's what I have actually pointed out. Getting local funds to sustain the company's operations, or even to improve the process of the company's operations, is very, very tough in Indonesia, because the local banks are very shy to lend funds easily to the local companies, unless the local companies are able to justify with tons of documents, which may be tough to do so. But it depends on the state of your power generation company, and the number of years of operations, and the volume of power that is being generated by your company, and to the volume of consumers that your company has been supplying, and of course the unit cost of electricity that you are producing, and the resale price of, I believe, to the grid is fixed. So basically, it's the unit cost of this electric power generated from your plant will be sufficient enough to actually to attract investors, if you can actually show that your profit is at a certain level, because the investors demand to invest in projects is at least on a minimum of 20% returns on investment. The higher it is, the better for the investor, because they can actually exit. Investors usually exit from an investment project within a span of, say, 3 years minimum to a maximum of 5 years. Some will go as long as 10 to 10 years, but they will not go more than that, because the longer the duration of the investment, the risk is higher. So they intend to exit out within a short span of 3 to 5 years once they make money, and then they will decide to invest elsewhere. So you will have all these documents, you call it a project profile. You can produce a project profile, provide all this information. I can actually link you up to a few investors who are investing in power generation plants. And of course, you must have a bankable power purchase agreement currently with the national grid. I'm sure you get funding very easily. Yeah, so you can actually get my email address from Bangun Energy. I believe they will share it with you, and we will communicate from there. And of course, if you can actually redesign your coal-fired plants into something of a renewable type, yeah, on the first time basis, it's expensive, but in the long run, you benefit because the cost of maintenance is much lower.
Okay. Okay, next questions from Pak Bondan. Ini minta dibacakan sama saya. How we can start up the renewable energy, for example, wind energy or other type of energy, renewable energy, despite of government regulations?
Well, you can actually start. If that is the question that you want to know, if you can actually start a wind energy project, you can, because there are, I think, 2 or 3 wind energy developers in Indonesia on a small scale, but they have already started. I think last year, or maybe 2 years ago. It was very, very tough for them to kick off initially, because of the lack of incentives from the local government, and incentives in the sense of like lower tax, to pay lower tax, and taxes on the company, that's the corporate tax, and lower taxes for the supply, the purchase of or importation of raw materials from out of Indonesia. And of course, between Indonesia provinces to provinces, there are also taxes. That's how the country is has designed the laws. For example, if Batam is considered a free trade zone, if you do not pay any taxes if you export out steel to other countries. But if you are supplying steel to say another province, which is not a free trade zone, you have to pay tax. Now, this is not really attractive to the industry. But if you are from a province that is not a free trade zone and you are buying materials from out of the country, you have to pay a very high tax. Now, some of these raw materials are not readily available in Indonesia. There are, but are only up to a certain sizes. Anything more than that, bigger than that, you have to get from overseas. Now, why the some of these major stockists or manufacturers are not putting the full range size in Indonesia? Because of the I should say the economics of scale. The projects that the Indonesian construction companies are doing, they are not on a huge scale. The sizes of such materials are not in high demand for them to stock up in Indonesia, and there's always a lapse in projects. Say like what I have mentioned earlier, there are projects for 2 years. Subsequently, there are no projects for another 1 year, and then the yards start to operate again because there are new projects coming. There's always a lapse, a gap in between. So still, raw material suppliers are not willing to stock up and materials in any place in Indonesia, whereby their materials will be left exposed to the environment for a certain period of time without any coating, and then eventually the lifespan of these steel materials will deteriorate and they will have to write off these materials. Now, so looking at this, like what I say, it's not just looking from a point of view of a developer, but there are several other parties that will have to come into play, whereby you have to talk to them. You have to talk to the government agencies. You have to talk to the suppliers. You have to talk to the customers. You have to talk to several parties to make sure they are all synchronized, and then you can actually develop sustainable process for you to sustain your operations. Yep.
Okay. Next question from Pak Aldo. Pak Aldo bisa dengar suara saya, Pak? Bener ya ini Aldo namanya? Oh, Triko, mohon maaf, Triko. Pak Triko bisa dengar suara saya? Bisa di-unmute?
Bisa Mbak Sari.
Oh ya, silakan.
Good evening, Mr. Peter Lah.
Good evening to you.
This is Triko in speaking. I am just the renewable energy enthusiast in Indonesia. I have one finding. This is related with the renewable energy development in the Indonesia case. So in Indonesia, we have a great strength on the development of the hydroelectricity. This is from pico hydro and then micro hydro. We have the strength because we have many local engineers that can develop the hydroelectricity from design engineering, manufacture, construction, and also operational and maintenance. We have many manufacture in Bangun, West Java, because initial the GTZ or the organization from German, they have good close coordination or good close contact with the manufacturer in Bandung. So we can develop the turbine of the hydro and then the electric control also. And then we also export the system to our Southeast Asia, for the example in Philippines and also in Malaysia. And then in Indonesia, we have a lot of the mountain that with the abundant amount of the water that are not being utilized properly. So the hydroelectricity is a good choice for the renewable energy in our country. However, we are facing the problem in the transmission system because the power block location and then the community location, this is required a long distance. So we have in the engineering, we have the what we call losses, the high losses of the power source. This is the first problem. Maybe Mr. Peter Loh can share what can we do related with this finding. The second finding, this is same with the other question in this webinar, that we are also facing the problem in the financial matter. So we have the investor. This is from Malaysia, Philippines, and also from Indonesia. But the investors still wait and see to invest the fund in the renewable energy due to there is no strong support from our government of Indonesia related with the renewable energy, and also from the regulation. So not clear regulation that mention to support the renewable energy. At this year, maybe 3 years or 2 years in this situation in Indonesia, so our government still focused to the fuel related with coal-fire power generation. This is still focused. For the renewable, yes, maybe we have the wind power plant in Sulawesi, and then many geothermal in Sumatra and also in West Java. But for the hydropower, and this is only the big one, this is in the Jawa Barat. We have between from Japan investor and also from the Indonesia power we have, but the other one we not have again on the new project of the hydroelectricity. But our resources is enough. Our resources in the Bangun, this is very quite enough to support this what we call project. So your advice to the above two finding or problem is highly appreciated. And then the other, we can continue to discuss maybe the update of the renewable energy through the email, yeah, if the Peter Loh is.
Sure,
Yes.
no problem.
Okay. Thank you. This is enough from me, and your advice to the two above finding is highly appreciated.
So you want me to answer to your two questions right now or through the email?
Maybe to email is no problem, or maybe the for at this time maybe it's just summary or introduction for my answer is okay, Mr. Loh.
Okay, just a quick one to answer responding to your first question. There's always the cost of the transmission lines, where if it's too far, too long, right? Well, who's going to pay for it? It depends on your discussion with the grid. Normally, the transmission lines are paid by the grid, national grid. But if the lines are too long, they may not agree to do it. So, which means that you cannot actually start up your plant, right? Unless you take over the payment of the grid lines. I would suggest that there's only one way, is to probably have a kind of a power batch, or you can call it a power substation. That's one way. Power batch to supply electricity at any remote places. That's one way. A power batch substation, whereby you can use it to connect the grid lines in order to shorten the lines to lower the cost. But it's just a raw statement, because no one has actually ever thought of a power batch substation. But there are power batch designs that are available in the market. Like what I say, technology is always changing. People should look into how to come up with the solutions, and then in doing so, we have to do research In doing research, we need to spend money, and not many companies are willing to spend money on researching, especially Asian countries. But European companies have always set aside a research department. They have set aside a sufficient amount of money for this department to do research to improve on their existing technology. That's why the European manufacturers are always on the advance as compared to the local manufacturers. The second point is on the funding and the government's assistance. Well, the funding is always the same answer that I'm going to give, or I have already given. The local government's encouragement or support in renewable energy, like what I said, I think in one of my points I mentioned, whereby are there anybody who's going to be impacted or affected by this entrance of the renewable energy? Yes, there are. And, so there are always some politics in play. It depends on how many will be affected and whether they are going to have some politics in the play whereby they will prevent the easy introduction of renewable energy into the Indonesian market, because so that they will not be affected by these new industries. And as always happening in not just in Indonesia. So it depends on how the Indonesian government is looking at it and how they're going to minimize the impact on this non-renewable energy companies, and how they are going to help them to survive, to redesign their existing systems, so that both parties, that means the non-renewable as well as the renewable energy companies, will survive, will grow. The government has actually started providing better incentives for renewable energy. I think they are more focused on wind farms and geothermal, but not so much. Nothing was mentioned on the hydropower plants. But I'm sure there are incentives that are open to renewable energy projects, not just wind farms and geothermal farms, because it's applicable to all. You can get my email address from Bangun Energy, and can talk a little bit more in details, and we can see how I can actually help you in any way in terms of what you're seeking.
Thank you, Pak, for the answer. Pak Peter, what time it is right now in Singapore? Are you in Singapore or Indonesia?
I'm in Bintan right now.
Oh, you're in Bintan. Okay, so it is still around 8, almost 9, yeah, Pak?
9 minutes to 9 from my clock.
Okay. Normally we are finished around 9 p.m. And before we end our session, there is one more question from Ibu Fini. I will read the questions. A few days ago, we have introduction to wind farm and project case session also, and Bu Fini would like to ask your advice in wind energy potential, the locations, and how much the investment.
Okay. Like what I have mentioned earlier, I think you are looking at say 20 megawatts wind farms is going to cost you about probably about a few hundred million, 300 to 500 million, maybe more, US dollars. So that is one, the cost. So getting these funds right now, I think there are only a few local companies that have this kind of funds, and I think one of them is already has a wind farm in Indonesia. You can actually talk to them if you are keen to develop a wind farm. But of course, companies with who are providing more funds will be usually will have put in a higher share of equity share in the company, and they will have a bigger say in how the company is going to be run. And end of the day, you are just a small player in the company, and of course, you can actually bind them up by having a written contract with this investor, so that you do not lose your design and your proposal, right? Your ideas to big players like them, and you will still benefit from it. There are, like what I've mentioned, there are international players who are looking at this region. They have already moved into Vietnam. Now they are looking downwards to invest. Now we are in talks with some of them. It's not so easy, it's tough. For example, like Bintan. Bintan is a free trade zone, and that is one of the best places to do business in Indonesia because it's tax-free, right? But then Bintan, I've been here in February, and there are many hardware shops in Bintan, but how many tools do I have to buy? Spanners and hammers, but you know, to get anything more than spanners and hammers, I have to go out of Bintan, I have to go to Batam, I have to go to Jakarta, or even out of Indonesia to purchase. And then logistics is another problem, right? We always use LCT, and our LCTs are arranged on a weekly basis, and then there's always a lead time of 1 more week, so we are only getting our materials on a bi-weekly basis. Now, if we require the materials, say in the next 2 days, that means we are going to be delayed for the next 12 days, right? Because that's the schedule. Now, we're looking at electric-powered LCTs for our offshore company that we can actually save on diesel. We can actually have a daily schedule because it doesn't take too long, only about an hour travel from Bintan to Batam, and we can have a daily, twice a day schedule of delivering materials, tools for our projects. And of course, that is only one of the things that we can do to solve the problem. There are many other solutions to solve the problem. Is increase the number of projects in Bintan, right? So that that will attract more suppliers or manufacturers to set up shops in Bintan, so we can get more than just spanners and hammers. Then in doing so, we can actually reduce the cost of the material and attract more customers to come to Bintan to do projects. And of course, like we have one or two kampongs just outside of the yard who were actually very quiet before we actually started the project. Now they are thriving. The shops, many eatery shops have opened up, and they are growing. They are enjoying the growth because of the people, the number of people that we have right now. We have about 1,457. So that's about say 50% of that to fit every day. New buildings are coming up, like houses for rental to these people coming from out of Bintan. So that's how the industry grow. Start up from the yard, and you have the food industry, you have the house accommodation industry that will start to grow. You have the hardware shops that will start to grow because that's where the source of income will come from the Bintan yard. So we have the electric ferry. Then we can start the forwarding business. We can actually hire people to run this forwarding company, right? When we have the electric ferry, we need electric workshops that can actually do a repair or inspect the electric LCTs. We need to construct new LCTs, so we need a builder to build for us. We need somebody who's going to manufacture the electric batteries for us. So many industries will spring up from this development. Yep.
Is there any waste management facilities in Bintan, Pak?
Waste, no.
No.
Everything is collected by the government and they are sending it to the landfill. So we have just signed a contract with PT PLN to supply additional electricity to the yard. But when we do so, we are increasing the cost of the operations of the yard. So we are looking at investing in a small little waste to energy facility. I think a capacity of a 10 ton. We want to do that as a pilot project. And if it's successful, we're going to increase that capacity and start to treat our own waste and treat the waste from the government collectors, the private industries, and then produce electricity to supply back to the grid, PT, PON, and so that they can actually supply to the rest at a lower cost. And whatever remaining energy, electricity that we have from the conversion, we can actually supply it to our yard so that we can reduce our cost even further. Besides that, once that is our first plan, the second plan, once that's moving, we're going to launch it in Batam and in other parts of Indonesia. That is in the on our long-term plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, Mendo also one of our subcontractor also, and sometimes my friends visit Bintan yard for inspections, for example, for that kind of activities. Bapak dan Ibu, apa masih ada pertanyaan lagi sebelum kita tutup sesi kita hari ini bersama Pak Peter? Kalau tidak ada lagi pertanyaan selanjutnya, saya nanti mau minta closing statement dulu dari Pak Peter. Pak Peter, would you provide us some closing statement, Pak?
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone again for being very patient to listen to my long sharing session on renewable energy. What I want to say is to grow an industry, we have to start it off, right? We have to develop an opportunity. Then from the opportunity, we can develop it into a business. From the business, then we can actually develop it into more businesses. And from more businesses, we are providing growth to the local community that we have actually started the project. Because if we are just a contractor, we are just waiting for projects from our customers. So we are trying to look at on a different perspective. We are trying to develop projects from opportunities, and from the opportunities, developing it into projects. We are trying to grow more projects from the projects that we are developing, and we hope that we can actually increase the hiring of more local Indonesians. We can increase the employment of the local Indonesians. Though I'm a Singaporean, but of course, since I'm the business advisor of PT Maendo, I'm placing a bigger emphasis on the local Indonesians. From the last time I worked in Batam many years ago, and now I've seen a change in the productivity level of the Indonesian workers, but they have improved tremendously from the last time I worked in Batam and then now. There are of course several other factors that are affecting the growth of the local labor, which I do not think it's appropriate for me to talk here. But I think more things can be done. But the main thing is right now, because of the COVID situation, many countries are affected by this COVID situation. Many people have lost their jobs. the Singapore government is trying their best to support the local population as much as they can. Singaporeans are still employable, but not in a large amount. More so badly affected are the Indonesians, but because the community is huge, and if the population is not employed, it's not viable, not only for the country, but also for the region as well. So it's important to create opportunities and developing it into projects so that people can be hired. It's a very important role for us, and we hope that in doing so we can get support from the local governments and any companies that would like to work with us and develop new businesses, new projects, so that we can help the country to grow and get more Indonesians employed. And of course, the economy and the future of the country always depends on the newer generation. That's the students right now who have a different perspective from the older generation. They are looking at a better life with better salary, better jobs, better things for the family. To be more educated than their predecessors. These are the different perspectives from the new generation Indonesians. So I believe the government should do more to help the new generation, so that the country will how should I say, sustain and help the local population. Yeah.
Okay. Some wishes for us here also, Pak. We have better economic growth in the future and more employment. And we would like also to invite you for next sessions in wind energy and ocean energy. If you still would like to, Bangun Energy will contact you further for the next sessions, ya, Pak.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, thank you for your time today. We are appreciated that. Dan terima kasih juga kepada teman-teman Bangun Energi yang lain. Terima kasih sudah meluangkan waktu hari ini. Mudah-mudahan informasi yang disampaikan oleh Pak Peter bermanfaat. Sebelum kita tutup dulu sesi hari ini, kita foto bersama dulu. Nanti dibantu sama Mbak Deswita, kalau enggak Pak Mas Heru. Mas Heru bisa dibantu. Pak Peter, we will take a picture first before we close the session here, Pak.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Mas Heru, you take it or I take it? Okay, maybe
Made saja, Mbak, made saja.
Okay, Pak Peter, we would like to take a picture, and then for all participants, would you mind to open your cam? And there is a 2-page, and we'll take it. I count 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, I am replaced first. For the second one, I take it. 1, 2. Okay, done. Thank you, Pak Peter, for your time and for your presentation. And then for the next future presentation, maybe Bangun Energi will contact you in other topic. Teman-teman, terima kasih telah bergabung dengan Bangun Energi. Kami tunggu di next session. Buat teman-teman yang mungkin belum bergabung dengan kami, bisa pantau kami di Telegram Bangun Energi atau di WA Group Bangun Energi. Kembali saya ingatkan untuk tetap dalam protokol COVID-19, jaga kesehatan, tidak berkerumun, sering-sering cuci tangan. Sukses untuk semua. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam. Good evening, Mr. Peter.
Salam.
Thank you. Good evening,
Thank you,
everyone.
Pak Peter.
Bye.
Bye.